There's a dangerous misconception right now as it pertains to building health, fitness, and nutrition businesses online. And part of this is due to the prevalence of online entrepreneurship and people creating content, making it seem like building a business or being a successful entrepreneur is one of the easiest things in the world, when the reality is it couldn't be anything further from the truth. Building a business has many different nuanced components, and especially when it comes to a service-based business, like being a health professional or being a fitness professional or being a nutrition coach, dietitian, strength and conditioning professional, doing so online or in person. There's a number of different layers when it comes to business. And I'm going to use the analogy of creating a meal, or essentially imagine like a fine dining experience and all of the different staff members that are required in order to create that experience. Because what people don't realize is in more of a 9-to-5 traditional job environment, or even as a really good fitness professional who's great at personal training, or maybe you're a great dietitian or you're a great nutrition coach, having the skill of providing the service of nutrition or the service of training can be very different than actually running a business. Now, I think part of the popularity and reason that people are gravitating towards this is there's a lot of programs geared towards scaling a business or building a business online, and people are monetizing this. And so as a result of that marketing, and because there are success stories from those programs, more and more people, are wanting to seek out the entrepreneurial path. And I'm very pro entrepreneurship. I believe that it is a gateway to a lot of personal and professional development. I think that it can be great for someone who loves that autonomy. I believe that it can be great in terms of providing jobs down the road, in terms of local economies and just your community, or people that you may hire to work with you, as well as the power of a small business and a team. So I am generally in favor of small business. I'm generally pro entrepreneurship. All that I'm saying here is that in the health and fitness space, entrepreneurship has been glamorized, and just across Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, entrepreneurship in general has been glamorized. Now, within the health and fitness sphere, because there's such an emphasis on social media, I do feel like it makes it a little bit worse. So inside today's episode, I'm going to use an analogy to kind of break this down and see where you might fit, as well as why it's a bit of a stretch to just assume that because someone's great at training or nutrition, that there's this natural carryover in terms of business ownership, when in reality, there are a lot of responsibilities. So I want you to picture, we're going to picture a fine dining experience, but let's take it back even a little bit further. We're going to contrast kind of a modern day 5-star fine dining experience, and then also imagine though that beyond just grocery shopping, that we also have the either farming component or hunting component beyond just food being readily available at a grocery store. Entrepreneurship requires that someone is actually good at the farming, the hunting, the gathering, the actually getting the raw resources and materials that a business thrives off of, which would be clients that are bringing in revenue into the business, and that is kind of the lifeblood of the business. But not only that, from a sales, marketing, and business development perspective, but you also have to have someone who can do the meal preparation. So having the kitchen skills to actually prepare the meal that is going to be served, right? So part of that would be in terms of client experience, but there's a significant operational component that goes into the fulfillment of, imagine creating, again, this dining experience. And we can follow this all the way through, from hunting and gathering or agriculture, and the actual raw materials of the food that would go into a meal, to setting the table, cleaning the dishes after the meal, to even taking out the trash and recycling and making sure that everything is clean for the meal that follows. If you were to break that down, that's at least probably 7 different independent functions inside of the meal experience or the dining experience. And the misconception I think a lot of people have online is that there's not as many moving pieces to it. And you could be absolutely amazing at meal preparation, or you could be actually pretty good at going out and finding clients. Maybe that's the hunting and gathering component or agricultural component, creating the raw materials for a business. But maybe you're not as great at the fulfillment piece, right? And that can create a lot of challenges. Or there's many coaches who might actually be good at setting the table, providing the food on the table, like that in-person session that's happening, right? So imagine you're a personal trainer who works within the confines of a 60-minute session. You spend an hour with a client and you're great on the gym floor, or you're absolutely great at online training and delivering the service of training. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be a magician at creating the flow of clients for the business in the first place. It's a skill that needs to be developed, and not everyone always necessarily has that skill out of the gate. So when these things are glamorized, when it's popularized and it makes it seem like it's super easy, people don't realize that, well, if they have one or two of those skills, let's say they're very organized and diligent with their programs, like, for example, to use my analogy, cleaning the dishes and putting the dishes away, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're great at the hunting, gathering, and providing the raw food materials for the dining experience. That doesn't necessarily mean that if let's say we're also inviting people to our dinner table, right? We need people there, otherwise you're just dining alone. So imagine this is truly a large dining experience and we have a massive table of individuals. Well, not everybody's great at organizing people and logistics and having everyone there at the same time and doing that actual component, right? So if we follow that all the way through, some people are going to be better at gathering the food, preparing the food, cooking the meal, other people better at some of the related ancillary components of that. And then maybe some people are better in terms of what happens after the meal, right? And with coaching, sometimes we're thinking of this, in a way that is unrealistic to assume that someone out of the gate is going to have, 5 to 7 of these different skills that we've referenced from the pillars of marketing and sales inside a business: finance, people, operations. It's not to say that you can't grow into an understanding of that and even mastery of those different areas and building your skill sets, certain character traits that are going to help you as an entrepreneur and as a business owner, and then improving your beliefs and personal development along the way in terms of the levels of, you actually have to become a higher quality human being with a higher acumen and skill sets and character traits that are going to allow you to actually build that business. And so when you see certain gimmicks, when you see certain tactics online presented to people that make it seem super easy to build a business, they're really missing the layers, especially that go into a health, fitness, and nutrition service-oriented business. And this is why building skills can be so powerful, because at least you have some primary components related to client retention, related to client results, getting some referrals, continuing to bring that lifeblood into the business, because some of these other things take time. You just have to stay in the game. You don't necessarily win at coaching, personal training, et cetera. You may get some client results that feel like wins. You may have some revenue milestones that feel like wins, but the purpose of opening this service-oriented business is obviously to stay in business, to continue to provide for your clients, to continue to provide for your family, or for yourself if you're someone who doesn't necessarily have a family. And so when we see some of these things that are positioned online where it's solely based off of teaching the marketing and sales piece, right, or certain Instagram tactics, or making it seem super easy to acquire and retain and deliver results for these clients, I think that's a bit short-sighted for most people, and it paints an unrealistic picture as to the ease of entrepreneurship. And then people have unrealistic expectations when then they actually get into the game, right? They begin coaching and things are hard, and then they're discouraged, and then they feel as if, they're the problem or they're broken, when in reality, it shouldn't have been painted as if it was this super easy thing to begin with, right? Business ownership is not a cakewalk. There's actually some benefits as well if you do have a skill set within coaching, or you do have, using the dining experience analogy, if you're really good at one of those 5 to 7 things that I mentioned in terms of, whether it was in today's day and age, would be the grocery shopping, meal preparation, the organization, flow of the kitchen, setting the table, inviting everyone to the table, catering to those individuals, having a amazing fine dining experience, cleaning up afterwards, making sure that we're taking out the trash and preparing for the meal that follows. If people were to have a few of those skill sets, that's still incredibly valuable, and you could be, the number 2, number 3 individual inside another organization as more of an entrepreneur and have a lot of benefits as well. So there's a bit of, again, like I said, people online who are popularizing the idea of business ownership. I think business ownership is amazing. I'm very pro entrepreneurship and small business, but there are places and seats on the bus for people inside of small business that don't require you to be a business owner, where you can still be very successful. And if people are going to, obviously in selling business programs or the things that exist on social media, there's a bit of ease that is presented in that discussion, or that there's shortcuts and things of that nature, but there aren't really overnight successes when it comes to this stuff. And I feel like that paints a false picture, a false reality. And then again, when people begin to start their businesses, they become incredibly frustrated, they become very discouraged, and then they're even more likely to quit. And then they're potentially worse off than when they started, because maybe they've left a previous opportunity that they had, and now they're a bit derailed when it comes to their future and discouraged in terms of the prospects of actually building a business in the first place. I share this with you guys because there's a place inside the industry. If this is something that you are passionate about, there's a way that you can provide a high level of service. There's a way that you can help people. There's a way that you can make a living and have a career. For many of you, that may be business ownership. For many of you, maybe it is, being an entrepreneur. Maybe even instead of being a solopreneur, maybe you have a team. And there are certainly people listening to this who have the capability to achieve that reality. And there are going to be other people who would make fantastic team members inside of another small business. And they could still have a fulfilling career and a rewarding profession and have amazing relationships with team and clients and still grow to fulfill their potential in other ways that may not be business ownership, without a lot of the different stressors and risk that fall onto the primary business owner or entrepreneur. I share this content because I wish it's something that people would have told me 10, 15 years ago. And I also think it's a alternative perspective and opinion compared to a lot of the media that we see online in today's day and age. So if this was helpful perspective for you, or you think someone else would benefit, please share the show. If you are watching on video, you can give it a thumbs up. Also, make sure you're subscribed to my channel, Sam Miller on YouTube. And if you are on audio, listening to Sam Miller Science, and you're new here, make sure you're subscribed so you never miss an episode. You can drop a 5-star rating and review to support the show and let us know that you appreciate the content that we put out here. It's also a way to pay it forward, right? So when you guys engage on the content or you leave some type of rating or review, it allows other people to find the content because it may be suggested by Apple Podcasts or Spotify or YouTube in terms of the algorithm. And then we're paying it forward in terms of the free content that is shared here. So chances are you wouldn't have found the show in the first place if one of my original listeners didn't share the show with you. So it's a great way to kind of continue the message and put it forward. I create this content because there was a lot of misinformation and misapplication of good information when I started. And I wanted a platform that was focused on translating some of the more complex aspects of nutrition, fitness, lifestyle, health optimization into things that people could actually leverage in a transformation. And when it comes to coaching or having any type of health, fitness, nutrition business, I felt like there was a lot of bad advice related to that as well. So whether you're in your own health and fitness journey or you're a business owner yourself, if you've benefited from the content, please share the show. You can also screenshot the episode and tag me. I'm at Sam Miller Science. And that's pretty much every major social platform, but I spent a lot of time on Instagram, podcasts, and creating these episodes for you guys. I appreciate you tuning in today, and I will talk to you in the next show.